don't know why I thought it'd be easy to come up with my top 5 Disney movies. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainly Movies. Today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 animated Disney movies. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, ranked lists, and trailer reactions. So why am I talking about Disney movies, and what exactly is the Movie Nerds Club? Well, you're going to be seeing a few other similar videos popping up on YouTube today, because a group of us movie reviewers have joined forces to provide you with monthly movie rankings, starting with our top 5 Disney animated movies. So who else is part of this Movie Nerds Club? Well, we've got Elsie Screen Talk, Rachel's Reviews, Ren Geekness, Ryan Cam, and Zach Pope. I've already got links to all of their channels in the description below, and I'll add their links to their top 5 Disney movie videos as they're posted, so make sure to go check them out and subscribe. So before we get into the ranking, I want to say just how hard this was. I thought it was going to be a breeze to pick my top 5 animated Disney movies, but it turns out that I've only got a few that are locked into their positions in my mind. The 5th spot especially could have gone to probably a dozen movies, so just be aware that there's some fluidity with this list for me. I have no idea how I'll tackle this when I eventually do a full rankography. Remember, these are just my top movies, not the top movies, so be sure to post your own personal top 5 Disney animated movies in the comments below. I've already reviewed some of these movies on this channel, so if you want to check those out for some more in-depth thoughts on each of them, I'll put links in the description below and also link them up in the cards as we go along. Alright, let's get this top list started. Coming in at number 5, Bolt. So I realized that this might be a bit of an odd pick, and probably not one that anybody was expecting. Like I said, this 5th spot could have gone to probably another 10 or 15 movies, and maybe by the time I post this, I'll change my mind, but for right now, I wanted to go with Bolt, because I think it's very overlooked. But I can understand why that is. This movie came out at the tail end of the post-Renaissance era, also known as the Second Dark Age. It was a 3D animated movie immediately preceded by 3 of the studio's most underwhelming films. It features the vocal talents of Miley Cyrus as well as John Travolta, and is kind of a derivative mix of classic Disney talking animal movie, superhero movie, and The Truman Show. So it's not that surprising that it's overlooked. And to be honest, I always overlook it too, until I rewatch it and remember just how much I enjoy it. Pretty much everything about this film is pure entertainment for me. The dual plot lines that extend from Bolt's delusion make for some really funny scenes and good interactions, especially with Mittens, and there's some surprisingly heartfelt stuff in this movie too. It's definitely got some predictable moments, but they're predictable in that anticipatory feel-good build-up kind of way. It's the type of movie where you can guess the next scene, but you still smile when it plays out exactly as you anticipated. Coming in at number 4, Hercules. So I should probably preface this by saying that I grew up during the Renaissance era of Disney animation. So even though I saw plenty of older Disney movies starting at a really young age, it was the films of this era that constituted many of my early theatrical experiences. And I think part of what made most of this era so good to me was the departure from the typical fairy tale source material. In the case of Hercules, we had a story loosely based on Greek mythology. And just like every Disney movie based on something else, there are countless changes from the source material. But this one still retains some of the darkness of the mythology. It's certainly fun and lighthearted at times, but the consequences in this film are pretty weighty, and those final 10 minutes are suspenseful and impactful. But this movie is far from being all doom and gloom. In fact, I would argue that Hercules and Aladdin might be the 2 most upbeat and comical movies of the Renaissance era. Both of these movies have a lot of pop culture references, but I think those in Hercules have stood the test of time a little bit better. And this movie doesn't just rely on one character to deliver the bulk of the entertainment. Obviously, Hercules is the main focus here, but there are so many great characters in this movie. Pegasus was a personal favorite of mine as a kid, but I also loved Meg and thought she was extremely cool. And honestly still think she's cool. And then we've got Hades, who happens to be one of my favorite Disney villains, balancing a pretty menacing evil side with a very entertaining and humorous personality. And I've got to at least briefly mention the songs, because several of them are among my Disney favorites. Coming in at number 3, Treasure Planet. So, this is the second post-Renaissance era movie to make this list, and I realize that it's another unconventional choice, but I've absolutely loved this movie since it came out. Coincidentally, 2002 was a big Treasure Island year for me. Before then, I had seen the 1950 live-action film, and of course The Muppets, but 2002 was the year I fell in love with the story. It was the year I first read the novel, and Treasure Island just so happened to be the play selected for our 6th grade musical, so a lot of my time revolved around this story. And then Treasure Planet came out, and let me just say that this movie still holds the record as the film I've seen the most times in theaters. This is just a pure adventure tale. It sounds so strange to take Treasure Island and set it in space with aliens and robots and solar-powered spaceships, but it works remarkably well. Again, I had a bit of a predisposition towards liking the story, but they do some really creative things here, so it never comes off feeling like some sort of space parody. The story's strong, the characters are surprisingly well developed, the cast and voice acting spot on, and the animation style still blows me away. In my opinion, this is by far the most underrated Disney film, and deserves a lot more attention than it gets. So if you haven't seen this one, or haven't seen it in close to 2 decades, please go watch it. And by the time you're done, just try not to wish that solar surfers were a real thing. Coming in at number 2, Mulan. So we jump back to the Renaissance era, and we've hit a movie that's held its position in the number 2 slot for 22 years and counting. Seeing this film as an 8-year-old girl was a revelation. Most female characters in Disney movies up to this point had been princesses, and I was just never able to connect with them. And the few who weren't royalty still mostly existed to fill the love interest role for the male hero of the story. Even the then recent stronger characters like Belle, Pocahontas, and Meg still fell into that trapping. Mulan was the first female Disney character who felt like an independent and strong character who truly had her own story. There's a bit of a love story between her and Shang, but it's never made the focus of the story, and rather than being a damsel in distress waiting around to be saved, Mulan's the one doing the saving, and that slight shift in the way the character's presented made a huge difference, making Mulan a bit of an animated role model for me. Beyond the character of Mulan, this film's got so much going for it. I've always been impressed by the tonal balance here. At its core, this is one of the darker Disney stories, adapting a Chinese legend centered around a war into an animated film for kids. It truly gets pretty intense at points, and has some very heavy and impactful emotional threads, even putting the war aside. And so the injection of humor we get here is a welcome counterbalance, and manages to keep the film engaging and fun even for younger viewers. Mushu was one of my favorite Disney characters as a kid, and even today, I still love him and really like the development of his character, especially in relation to Mulan. And once again, I can't move on without mentioning the music. This film is full of some really memorable songs, and actually has my top favorite Disney song of all time, I'll Make a Man Out of You. So that means my number 1 favorite Disney animated movie is The Lion King. So I'm sure this wasn't a surprise to anybody who knows me, because I've talked about this film and the impact it's had on me quite a bit. This has been my number 1 favorite Disney movie since 1994, and has remained my favorite animated movie from any studio for the entirety of those 26 years. To say that I grew up with this movie is an understatement. The Lion King was my childhood. It was the first movie that I ever saw in the theater, and after that, I was obsessed. Everything was Lion King for me, for years. Birthday parties, Halloween, clothes, toys, stuffed animals, wallpaper. I lived and breathed The Lion King. And I know that just sounds like a case of typical childhood fanaticism, but this is a movie that has stuck with me to almost that high of a level for my whole life. It's remarkable to me how this film grows with you and how you connect with it differently at different stages of your life. The movie doesn't change, but you do, and so your understanding of the themes and the relevancy of points that this movie makes changes as well. I've loved this movie my whole life, but I've loved it for slightly different reasons nearly every time I've seen it. The characters, the story, the themes, the emotion, the music, the animation, it's all amazing and was somehow both revolutionary and timeless at the same time. I don't consider many movies to be perfect, but The Lion King is one of those those extremely rare, perfect movies for me. I can't wait for this movie to spend another 26 years at number 1. Alright, so there you have it. My top 5 Disney animated movies. What are your top Disney animated films? Be sure to post your own ranking in the comments below. And don't forget to check out the pics of the other members of the Movie Nerds Club. Remember, I've already reviewed some of these movies, so you can check those out for some more in-depth discussion of each, as well as my ratings, pros and cons, and even tailored film recommendations. And if you're interested in buying any of these movies, I do have affiliate links to all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this top list, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe or add it to see more videos like this, as well as movie reviews. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.